Welcome to Flipping Your Classroom. This video begins with a look at the traditional classroom and then transitions into a flipped classroom. As you watch the video, reflect upon your own classroom and style of teaching. Come to class prepared to discuss the following questions. What style of teaching best describes you in your classroom? Be able to compare the traditional and flipped classroom by describing at least 3 pedagogical similarities and differences. John Sowash discussed the shortcomings of the traditional classroom, while Aaron Sams discusses some of the benefits of flipping the classroom. I'd like to add to this discussion by bringing up your own frustrations of teaching within the traditional environment and what you hope flipping your classroom might help your students to achieve. If this video brings up any additional questions that you would like answered, please write them down individually on note cards or small pieces of paper and turn them into me on the first day of class.
Traditional classroom before we get into the reverse instruction. In a traditional classroom, typically what happens is the teacher or professor lectures during class. There's a large group of students. The teacher stands up front, perhaps throws up a few PowerPoint slides, writes on the chalkboard or dry erase board, and tries to share his or her knowledge with the students in the classroom. During the lecture, there are probably some practice problems that are done or some scenarios that are discussed. Very typical, especially in a science or math type classroom. At the end of the lecture, the professor typically assigns some homework for the student to accomplish during the evening to reinforce whatever was discussed during class. Most students go home and don't do them right away, but do other things and probably don't pull out the homework until the absolute last moment. Unfortunately, by that time, they have probably forgotten the practice problems that were explained during class. The student tries to do the homework, works on it for a while, becomes frustrated, gives up, puts down the wrong answer, or thinks they have the right answer but really don't. In any case, they have not mastered the concept that the instructor was desiring them to master. Back to class, the professor, instructor probably asks if there are any questions, maybe fields 1 or 2, perhaps goes over a couple of practice problems, collects the homework from the previous day's work, and says, okay, class, we need to move on to the next topic. For the majority of the students in this class, they have not mastered the topic. Many of them are completely clueless, and only a very small percentage of the class understands as intended. This is the traditional model of instruction, and there are a few inherent problems with it. First of all, class periods are too short. This is true no matter how well you plan out your lessons. I know for me, 50 minutes or 47 minutes is just not enough time to get everything across that you would like to share all the examples that you would like, to do all the practice problems that you would like. Secondly, there's never enough time for student questions. I typically pack my class full with lectures, with examples, and slides, and questions, and things like that I don't have time to field questions generated by the students. Next, there's never enough time to help individual students. Because we're so busy lecturing, taking attendance, answering a few questions from the larger group, there's never enough time to help the individual students to figure out which student is really struggling and to guide information around their mental roadblocks. When students go home or to their dorm to do their practice problems and they can't remember, there's rarely the support that's needed for them to move past the roadblocks that they're experiencing. You are not there to help guide them through the challenges. Finally, the homework that is assigned typically does not lead to subject mastery. It's rushed through, it's not focused on, it's done too far after the instruction is given, it's done poorly. In any case, it rarely leads to greater student understanding.
I'm Aaron Sams, and I teach science here at Woodland Park High School. My ultimate goal, I guess, as a teacher is to help students become learners who can learn for themselves and by themselves. One of the problems that I was guilty of even prior to flipping my classroom around was The classroom was centered around me. I told them exactly what to learn, how to learn it, what assignments to do to learn it, and when to learn it, and how to prove to me that they learned it. I don't do that anymore. We changed the place in which content is delivered. Instead of standing in front of a class and delivering, here's how you do this type of problem, here's how this works, I deliver that direct instruction now asynchronously at home through these videos that we make with Camtasia Studio.
Times till whole.
Oh, we didn't do that last time.
The last step, they were already whole numbers. We had 1, 1, and 4.
Yeah.
Here we don't have a whole number. So here's a few little tricks when you need to multiply by whole numbers. If one of your numbers ends in 0.5, you're going to multiply by 2.
Or something 0.5 times it by 2.
Right.
Okay, write this down, guys.
Yes. If something ends in 0.3 or 0.33 or 0.66, you multiply by 3.
And when the kids come to class, they don't show up to learn new stuff. They show up to apply the things that they learn at home and to ask me questions about the things they learned at home. So now they can have my lesson, if you will, what I would normally have stood up and lectured to them in class with some added features. They get that at home. And then what they were expected to do for homework is now what they do in my class. Life is different for me because I no longer am the guy who stands up in the front of the classroom and just yaks at a student for an hour or however long the class is. Now I walk around the class and I help kids. I'm a tutor, I'm a guide, I'm the putter-outer of fires, whatever it happens to be in my crazy chemistry class. I walk around and do that. I don't stand up front and teach under the kind of the traditional model. I'm Aaron Sams. I'm a teacher. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. And I love Camtasia Studio.